just such a net positive for the block, for the town, for everything. So I just want to say, as a direct neighbor, 4 doors down, I will be a customer, a regular customer, and I just think it's a net positive.
And you're going to have a great kitchen 4 doors down. So, right? You're going to have a great kitchen.
Yes, exactly. So I'm in support.
Thank you.
Right, you have big shoes to fill. Oh, yeah, they're your shoes.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone to speak against? Is there anyone to speak against? Is there anyone to speak against?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to close public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is C1. This is ordinance 2024-2, Chapter 15, to junk, secondhand, and antique dealers. This is for section 1536, 1538, and 1539. And this is to comply with the legislative changes exempting licensing requirements for businesses dealing with secondhand consignment goods, resale goods, and thrift goods and antiques. Second reading.
I make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to be approved. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is C2. This is ordinance 2024-3, Chapter 16 to Article 5, stopping, standing, and parking. And this is to add a 30-minute parking restriction on High Street, Monday through Friday, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Second reading.
Based on the recommendations, I make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is C3. This is ordinance 2024-4, Chapter 17, Article 2 to alcohol beverage establishments. And this is to increase the number of Class BV limited liquor licenses from 7 to 8. Second reading.
Motion to approve second reading.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The next item is C4. This is ordinance 2024-5, Chapter 16, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 5, Stopping, Standing, and Parking. And this is for one space adjacent to the driveway of 45 Congregational Street. First reading.
I move this constitutes first reading.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim that this constitutes first reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is C5. This is ordinance 2024-6, Chapter 27, Article I, Taxation, Section 27-7. This is exemptions of the persons over the age of 65 years. In Section 27-9, entitlements and amounts. This is first reading.
I move this constitutes first reading.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim that this constitutes first reading. Discussion? I'm actually going to just take a moment here. This council had tremendous discussion along with the administrator and actually probably everyone in the room, quite a while talking about this, talking about the benefits of increasing the discount, or excuse me, the exemption of persons over the age 65. The way this looks here, and this is first reading, there will be a second reading. Sarah, could you just take a quick moment, because we had talked about an X dollar figure. So for example, a person who is age 65 to 69 would see a $300 exemption from how much they pay. The way it shows here, 15,000. And I believe, from my understanding, it's the way we have to show it per tax regulation. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yes. It's a $20 tax rate per ordinance, and it's the value divided by 1,000 times that $20.
And it's just the way that we need to show it, but at the end of the day, it's a 300, a 350. And a side note on that one, this is first reading, so we'll have second reading on it. These are all being increased. So there was a lot of conversation to get to this point. So thank you. Andy?
Yeah, I just want to note, to be specific, that's in that section 27.9F. You've only got a little excerpt of F for these three numbers that are being changed of 29.7. But the last part talks about calculating each exempted each exemption granted on property by any of the provisions of this section is at the current tax rate or a rate equivalent to $20 per thousand of valuation, whichever is greater. So that's how you get to the 20. If you had a tax rate that was higher than 20, it would still be limited to the $20 on the exemption.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Mr. Chairman, I
Please.
had to figure that out. I was looking at this yesterday and I was like, I thought we were doing a $250 to $300 tax exemption. Then I quickly figured out if I move the decimal points over a couple times, multiply it by the 20, that I can figure out what that would be.
There
So-
it is. Okay. Any other? Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, similar to Aaron's comment, I mean, we had a lot of discussion because I was looking for a higher amount than we're doing. But I will say, so when I saw this, I was like, well, what happened to this? Because even the way it's discussed, even though it may be the same in the end, just these numbers make it look different. And and it may be more positively, like actually what we're taking off of your taxes. It may only equate to like $400 in savings or whatever. But, I did get confused by this myself as well. So thank you for the explanation.
Yes, Andy, that was excellent. And Sarah, thank you. Taking a moment to actually later on in our agenda, I6, we'll have greater discussion about the requirements of that or potential changes and a request for legislative change. Any other discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is C6. This is ordinance 2024-7, chapter 27 for taxation, section 27-9. And this is for amendments to the hardship exemption. This is first reading.
I move this constitutes first reading.
Second,
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim, that this constitutes first reading. Any discussion?
Yes, just a quick question on, it says not exceeding the applicable poverty threshold as determined by the United States Department of Commerce. What is it right now? Can anybody?
$15,060.
For
Okay.
what, a family of one? No, seriously, I mean.
A family of one.
Well,
If you
that's-
look on, CDBG application.
What's the question?
well, no, it's,
Okay.
yeah, that's just for a family of one, but then there's a table,
Right, there's a whole
right?
table,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I was just saying to Tony, if you go on like HUD, for example, like CDBG applications,
Yeah.
have that whole chart laid out for anybody that wants to look, you could just Google it. And they update it every year.
right.
We'll do it.
And that's why this ordinance is so powerful because it stays
Every
current.
2 years?
No, there's two different poverty
Oh, I'm sure that there may
standards.
be. I mean, I
Yeah,
know
and I
that's
think
one,
that one is
that's one
the.
of his used all the
HHS
time, the
one,
low
yeah.
moderate
Sorry.
income, yeah.
Right.
No. So what you heard so you'll hear this council go through some ordinances very quickly. Obviously, we take the time prior to these meetings to go through them and be comfortable with them. This is also very important. This has been mentioned a few times. This particular hardship exemption, did you hear the number there? It's currently $12,000. Do the math on that, living at $12,000. What we've done is minusculely different, finding and connecting it to the poverty level so it will continue to adjust and not require special, it'll be automatic as opposed to going in and adjusting it on a yearly basis. So as the poverty level goes up, at 15,000 is where it is right now, which is scary. It will move accordingly. But that was the whole idea behind this. This town has many exemptions, and there are, we've just talked about 2 right now. There are others, including military service, including our fire department. So if you're not familiar with them, please take a moment. They're there. If you qualify for them, they're there for you. That's why we do all of this. Any other discussion?
Just the restating, well, not restating, but just reinforcing what you said. Certainly, we're trying to be very cognizant what the needs are and stay apart with what's happening nationally, not just here in the little town of Bristol, that's favorable to our residents in need.
Yep. And this is why this ordinance stays so relevant because it will be tied to the poverty branch.
Yeah, just Mr. Chairman, I know we don't really comment a lot on the first readings or anything like that, but certainly I did a little bit of research on it today, and I think that There's another standard too that's put forward by HHS. It's a little bit different. It could be a little bit better for this situation, but I know that this is first reading and we'll still have time to talk about those types of things. So
Outstanding. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D1. This is Charles Eli Dunn from Folklore LLC, doing business as Folklore Provisions, 301 Hope Street. This is a request for vitriolling license.
Based on the recommendations, I move that we approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. If you're not speaking, if you could turn your mic off, we seem to get a little feedback here this evening. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is D2. This is Charles Eli Dunn, Folklore
better.
LLC, doing business as Folklore Provisions, 301 Hope Street. This is a request for Class B limited liquor license.
Based on all the positive recommendations, make a motion to, we refer this to the solicitor?
Nope, it's
No.
already
Nope, it's all
directed.
set.
Just approve the,
We're ready to approve.
We already approve. Motion to
Second,
approve.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Discussion?
yes, this will be with a 6-month review. Am I correct in that?
Yes, 6 months review. Yep, based on those recommendations, correct.
So we had a motion and a second, including a 6-month review as we normally do. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations.
Yes.
We look forward to you opening.
I'm looking forward to a cajada there.
I don't know what you said, but it sounds good. So,
One of those custard, you know, the little
Oh, okay,
Portuguese
I know.
custard.
All right,
How can you pass those up?
Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D3. This is Philip Fittings from the British Motor Cars in Bristol. This is in support of the Explore Bristol, request for a one-day dancing and entertainment license at Independence Park, June 7, from 5:30 PM to 9 PM.
I make a motion that we approve it.
Second?
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion?
Yes, let's not forget as how this came about, you know, with our dear friend that has passed on, Mike Burns. He was so instrumental in bringing this event to town. And certainly we look forward to see this continue.
Thank you for saying that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D4. This is Philip Fittings, British Motor Cars in Bristol. This is a request for a food truck event permit in support of Explore Bristol at the Lower Field at the Town Beach, south side of Asylum Road on June 8th, 2024, from 8 AM to 5 PM.
Make a motion that we approve it.
Second?
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is D5. This is Our Lady of Mount Carmel School, 127 State Street. This is a request for a one-day dancing and entertainment license for fundraising event on May 18th from 6 PM to 11 PM.
Based on the recommendations, I make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item is D6. This is the Bristol Police Department. This is a request for one-day dancing and entertainment license for the 3rd annual Community Night Out event at the Town Common on August 14, 2024, from 5:30 to 8:30.
I always wondered, do we get a recommendation from the police department about the police department? How does that work out? So, of course, come on up. It's a 30-second commercial.
Good
Please.
evening.
Good evening.
Once again, here we are on our 3rd annual Community Night Out, and you guys know what I'm going to be asking for. But I just want to give a brief statement as to where and why we do this event. So I am excited to inform you about our upcoming 3rd annual Community Night Out scheduled to take place on August 14th on the Town Common. The last 2 editions of this event have been a resounding success, bringing our community together for an evening of fun, entertainment, camaraderie. We believe that a strong and connected community is a foundation of the town of Bristol and also for the Bristol Police Department. The purpose of our Community Night Out is to create an inclusive and enjoyable environment for residents of all ages. Through various activities, entertainment, and local vendors, we aim to strengthen community bonds, promote local businesses, and provide a memorable experience for everyone involved. The success of our past events have not been possible without the generous support of community-minded elected leadership and our chief. The sponsorships play a crucial role in the venue rentals, entertainment, promotional materials, and all other logistics like buying the backpacks for the children, bike helmets, and so on. Your support will not only contribute to the success of the event, but also showcase your commitment to community development. This event is unique, unlike the community night out. This community and national night out, there's a community night out, which are all of our food, drink, everything is complimentary, where other communities, they raise money. This is all free, and it's one of the last events basically before the children go back to school. So this year I'm asking for the same from the council as in the past previous years, a $1,000 donation towards the event.
Council?
Make a motion to approve based on the recommendations and grant $1,000 out of contingency.
I'm going to
Second.
interrupt for one quick second. So the, sorry, the petition for the support is listed in section F. So this one, I'm sorry, would be just for the dancing and entertainment. The licenses are separate, and then the petition for the support is actually in F. So I don't know if you want to call that up and do it all at the same time, or
I think the reason why we did that was that D6 was marked as it says we kindly request a grant for $1,000.
on D6 or
Yeah.
F?
So,
Oh, because they're all part of, it's all part
Gotcha.
of the same thing. My apologies.
No,
But
it's
the
not an
actual-
apology. Not,
The actual request is in F.
So, Sergeant, all of that-
Sorry.
we'll have to come back to an F apparently.
so we just need to approve the licensing and the use of the
think we can
common.
approve.
correct?
Well, I'll tell you what.
For
why don't we just-
D6, D7 is the approval of the licenses and the common, and then if you want to. pull
Why don't we
up-
do this? How about if we get a motion to combine all of these agenda items? Because
So
everybody's here.
Second.
What is the other?
All right, beautiful. So we had a motion from Mary, seconded by Aaron to combine all these agenda items. Is there any discussion?
Yes, does the Director of Public Safety approve this? It's,
So
okay,
they actually have a police, the police actually.
Well, we
approve their
cannot
own.
get-
They actually
Can I-
approve their own.
I just want to take a, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so now,
Right, and just for the record, so we're combining F3 with D6
D and D7.
and D7.
correct.
Okay.
I was just getting there, sir.
Thanks.
All right, so what's now in front of this council is a request for a dancing and entertainment license. The sergeant so well said, looking for council, a council donation of, which was last year we did $1,000 and looking for that again. And also for a one-day food truck at the third annual request for a one-day food truck. So that's what is
Motion
being
to-
voted on.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to bump up that 1,000 to 1,200 since it's free food that's given out to all of our residents as participants.
I appreciate that, Councilman, because the event has grown in popularity from the first year, then to second year, and I expect this year to be not equally or more popular than last year, and we're pretty much going to take over the whole common for the participants. The event has, word of mouth has grown, and people are just supporting it without even having to really ask, so.
I'll second the motion. It's a phenomenal event.
You want to third it?
I do kind of want to third it, actually. No, I was just gonna say that, yeah, definitely support this event and support it even more, knowing that Councilman Texera is going to be there on the dunk tank this year. So, like he is every, for the
Thanks
third
for volunteering, man.
consecutive year? Is that third consecutive year?
That will be the third year. That's correct.
This is a wonderful opportunity to take a moment in the world continues to change, but our support of the police department, that is human beings, the people that work there, the people, the chief, and everybody underneath you, chief, you, sir, your colleagues. Bristol supports you. You get support because you earn that support. You deserve that support. It isn't blind. It is because of what you do. It's because of what you give back to the community. I'm taking a moment to say these words because in a world where other communities are having large challenges getting new officers to join force. And we have our own challenges with that. But ours, I believe, may be less than a lot. And I know that working with you, for the chief, for this community, we can't tell you how much we appreciate it. But I'll say it again, it's because you earn it and deserve it. It's not just blind. So this council appreciates it, and we get to speak for the town. This town appreciates it. I know everyone else here does too.
I
So
appreciate that. Thank you.
So,
Mr. Chairman, thank you for those comments, very deserving.
any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D8. This is Victor Gomes from Vic's Corner Seafood and Catering, 465 Wood Street. This is a request for a vitrilling license.
Is
Based
Victor
on the-
here? Bet you didn't know you were going to come up, did you? So Tim, I interrupted you. We're going to make a motion?
I was, but do you?
Go
want
ahead,
him to
please,
speak
continue.
first, or-
No, go
Okay,
ahead.
I was just going to say, based on the positive recommendations, make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, second by Tony. Discussion. This is your opportunity for a 30-second commercial, sir. Please.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be in Bristol, further doing what I've been already doing for a lot of years. It just, it's a great location and we've been at the Elks for a little bit now, and it's a members only club. And I've been serving food, like I said, for a lot of years, and a lot of people want to come to the Elks and they can't. So this is going to be an opportunity to be able to, to have people just come and get takeout and whatever we prepare for them. So very exciting.
Outstanding. Any discussion from the council?
Yeah, Mr. Gomes, did I see it? There's also catering on your
Well, so
menu?
that's for future licensing.
Okay.
I'll have to apply for that license.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna ask what you were gonna have for catering. That's what I was gonna ask. I didn't care about the license.
Well, we're gonna be doing a lot of takeout as far as food that's prepared.
Yeah.
A la minute, but also stuff that you can walk in there and grab and go as well.
Okay.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Could I just
Yeah, that's
ask
great.
you if there's are you gonna make space for some tables in there? People wanted to just stay, or is it all gonna be takeout?
No, it'll just be takeout. There'll be no indoor seating.
Okay.
Can you expect to be open when?
Well, hopefully sometime in April.
April, okay.
We're hoping.
There's a lot of good things happening in Bristol, isn't it? Outstanding. Any other discussion?
Yes, I see that you're very ambitious. I know you're closed on Monday to take a little breather, but then you open on Sunday through 8 o'clock?
Well, I think a lot of people in the restaurant business sometimes close early for a lot of the folks that work. They're traveling to and from work, getting home late sometime. By the time they get settled, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And a lot of places that do some takeout, they're closed. So it kind of leaves a lot of people kind of saying, what are we going to do now? Obviously, McDonald's is open, Burger King's open, but to be able to go out to get the food that we want people to enjoy, I think they eat.
It's okay to say good food. We're not going to take any offense to it. I think it's wonderful. So that's no problem at all.
So that's one of the main reasons why we want to stay open later.
I think that's great, and I often look at that because I get home late sometimes, and also sometimes on Sundays, it's not a lot of places open in the in the evening or whatever.
Exactly.
Any other discussion?
Very nice menu, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D9. This is Camille Texera, the chairwoman for the Bristol 4th of July Committee. This is a request for a bingo license at the VFW Post on March 26th and September 18th, both events from 6 PM to 8:30.
Anybody?
Motion to approve based on the recommendations.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is D10. This is Charles McDunn from the Bristol 4th of July Summer Concert Series. This is a request for food truck from June 19th to July 2nd, 2024 at Independence Park from 4:30 to 9:45 daily.
Based on the recommendations, I make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
Motion made by by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D11. This is Maria Cesario, the treasurer from the Bristol Rotary Club. This is a request for one-day bingo license for a fundraiser on March 21st at the St. Elizabeth's Church Auditorium from 5:30 to 9 p.m.
Based on the recommendations, I make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is E1. This is Fabio Lopes from Bristol Suntec Cafe, 499 Hook Street. This is the 6-month review and a request for the consideration of one Class BV liquor license. This is continued from July 12th. You will also find a receipt at meeting. There is a recommendation from the police department. It was a little delay from the clerk's office requesting that. The chief was very kind to get this to the council in time for this petition tonight. So thank you, Chief.
Chief, no issues? Not that we expected any, but outstanding.
Great. Motion to approve based on the positive recommendations.
Second.
So it's that plus calling for, let me see if I get this right, an additional Class BV liquor license for council consideration on March 27th to schedule a public hearing for April 17th. Okay. Any other discussion from the council?
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
No commercial?
Not today.
No? Any other
Good night.
discussion? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I just overheard Mary say another good establishment. So I'm here. Well said.
For 22 years.
Well said.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is F1. This is Philip Fittings, British Motor Cars in Bristol. This is a request to sell and serve alcohol in support of the Explore Bristol at Independence Park. This is for June 7th from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Make a
Based-
motion.
Yep.
Based on the recommendations, make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is F2. This is Juan D. Maderas, Facility Manager of St. Elizabeth's Auditorium. This is a request to relocate 2 accessible parking spaces in the vicinity of 577 Wood Street.
So to remind the council, this doesn't need
This
to
would
be
be.
referred. This is just a
This would
resolution.
constitute as
So
first reading, and then we would have it on second reading on the March 27th.
there it is.
So I make a motion that we constitute to this first reading.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary, as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is F4. This is Clara Reed, 11 Noyes Avenue. This is a request for no parking in front of 8-10 Noyes Avenue. So I have recommendations from the police and the fire department.
Council.
Do we have any backup to this?
So it's great.
This
So
one? Yes.
Chief,
To
so
motion.
let me just take a step back. Eric's going to put this on. We implemented, I should say, the police department implemented a process for looking at no parking and whether it's justified or not, and having it consistent. What you're going to see here just in a second, and this council, I haven't seen this nor of anybody yet, is 2 cruisers, the larger one trying to get in and out and show challenges. Is it possible to get in and out? So this council's had many discussions about removing parking places. And so we take this, as you can see, quite seriously. So let's watch. Is anybody worried he's going to hit the car? No.
Just me.
So Chief, that's a tight but pass. Is that what we're calling that?
Yes, as you can see, there's snow on the ground. There's weekly, trash receptacles there. But as we all know, the width of the roadway is extremely compromising. It is no doubt that it is a tight fit. However, it is achievable.
Okay.
That's probably one of the tightest ones we've seen, huh?
I do want to say too that there's been a lot of issues on that street. I think, Chief, when you first came to Bristol,
Yes.
one of the issues was
Mm.
dealing with Noise Avenue with a hodgepodge of different issues and what's in statute, what's not, or in ordinance. So I think I'm happy that it proved out to be okay here because I think it would be a huge problem otherwise.
And I just want to say the videos are very, very helpful to have when we're making these decisions.
And considering all the challenges there with trash containers and snow.
So I know that the applicant is here, Clara Reed. Before we take a vote, you are more than welcome to.
Okay.
We don't necessarily have a dress code, so.
I've been living here longer than anyone else. Hi, it's great to see you all tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I've lived here for 8 years on Noise Ave. I know a lot of you have been here many decades, so I'm in a much more recent situation there. My concern is safety here. There are 4 driveways coming out into the street from that particular area that you just looked at. It definitely blocks my driveway. And I spoke with 10 other residents in that area who also agreed it's too tight. There was a no parking sign there when I moved here. And when the road was repaved, they went over it and I was told it couldn't be replaced. And I'm not sure why that is.
I can actually answer that, or at least I believe I can. We have paved multiple streets and there were no parking boxes. Long time ago, they would be put in without ordinance. So a no parking box means nothing without an ordinance. You can't enforce it. Police department can't write a ticket, or can write a ticket, but it's not enforceable in court if there is no ordinance behind it. That parking space that you're speaking of, and not just that one, there were others and probably continue to be more that do not have an ordinance behind them. So it was looked at when that road was repaved and it did not, I don't know how to say this, pass muster maybe would be, it wasn't shown as needed in that area. And it is no question that's tight, but it is possible to get out. So that's where the justification came from. And that's why it was there before, but it truly should not have been. There was no ordinance behind it. That's the justification.
Yeah.
Well, as I say, I'm concerned about safety, basically. We have a lot of kids on our street and it hampers, a vehicle sitting there hampers people's ability to see. And there are a lot of cars that come down the street really fast. I want to point that out too. So if you're trying to back up and you've got cars coming down the street, I think that's a real serious problem.
It is definitely a tight street.
We have 18 driveways and over 30 cars there already. So it's a lot. And I'm speaking as a spokesperson for all my neighbors who signed that petition. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, no, I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, I know that, we have a lot of these petitions come before us and I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, well, before Chief's time, they used to come before us and we didn't really have much supporting documentation. All we had was a picture or something like that to go off of. And this is a more systematic way of making decisions. And it kind of rules out some of the more irrationalities, I guess you could say, of maybe someone knowing someone or something like that as we're making decisions about where parking boxes are and things like that. So the only reason why I'm saying that is because I really do appreciate the additional information that we get when we have the police officers hitting the timeout button on the jobs that they're doing and going out there and ensuring that we're getting this additional information so that we can always make the right decision. So thank you.
And I appreciate your concerns, okay, in terms of safety. I live in your neighborhood, not a noise on Cottage. And I can tell you, I feel your pain, you know. We have quite a few driveways and I go through the same situation there, including handicap spots that we have now, which have taken up quite a bit of the space. So many of the folks actually have to park on High Street because there's just not enough parking. So I understand and sympathize with what you're saying.
Council,
I make a motion, we deny it.
Second.
there's a motion made by Tony, seconded by Aaron to deny. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item in the agenda is F5. This is Jason Paganelli from True North Running Company. And this is in regards to the Cool State Park Half Marathon on November 3rd, 2024. And this is for a portion of the race on public roadway.
Based on all the positive recommendations, make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is appointments. This is for, the first one is G1. This is for the Wake Forest Trust, and it's one term set to expire February 2026. And you have Brian Leffingwell from 12 Front Avenue with interest in reappointment.
Motion to reappoint.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to reappoint. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is G2. This is North and East Burial Grounds Commission, and this is for one unexpired term set to expire January 2025. And we have Charles Cavalcanti with a letter of resignation.
I make a motion, we accept the resignation with regret and with much appreciation for all the accomplishments under his 12 years, I believe it was. 15 years of service.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And should we say to advertise as well for this? No.
I heard that. I heard that's what you
That's-
said.
That
yes,
was part of
yes,
it, yeah.
yes.
I was trying to mumble that one out.
Outstanding.
The next item on the agenda is G3. This is the Bristol 250th Commission, and this is the recommendations from the 4th of July Committee for Carol Gafford, and also the recommendation from Roger Williams University for Amanda Marsili to serve on the board.
So do we
We can
approve? We just
So
accept
those are
these?
just accepted.
Yeah, we can accept those.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept those recommendations.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to accept both recommendations. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G4. This is the Recreation Board. This is 3 terms set to expire February 2027. There's 1 full member, 1 alternate member, and there is currently 1 alternate vacancy. And we have Michael Cabral, and this is with interest in reappointment, and we have Kevin Manuel, first alternate with interest in reappointment.
Motion to reappoint both candidates.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to reappoint both candidates. Any discussion?
Should we also advertise for the second alternate?
I generally advertise, so when we put
Yeah.
the public service appointments in the paper, it doesn't cost us
Yeah.
anything extra
Usually
to
we
add
do.
the vacancy, so we do put them in there, just to give people notice.
Outstanding. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G5. This is for the Harbor Commission. This is 1 term set to expire March 2024. We have Dominic Franco, and this is with interest in reappointment. We did receive a application from Vasco Castro with interest in appointment, and we received a late application from Bruce Palumbo, also with interest in appointment.
I make a motion, we reappoint Mr. Franco.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to reappoint Dom Franco. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G6. This is the Zoning Board of Review. This is 2 terms set to expire March 2029. We have Joseph Ashola for interest in reappointment, and we also have Donald Kern also with interest in reappointment.
Make a motion to reappoint board candidates.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to reappoint both candidates. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G7, this is the Bristol County Water Authority. There's 2 vacant terms. This one is for one term set to expire February 2027, and we have Robert Martin with interest in reappointment.
Make a motion to reappoint Chief Martin.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to reappoint. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Actually, if I may, I gotta be careful. I said reappoint chief, not necessarily chief on this case.
The next
Still a chief.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is G8. This is the Christmas Festival Committee, and this is a recommendation list from David Scarpino, the chair, for the proposed membership list for 2024, 2025.
Make a motion, we accept the recommended list for the Christmas Festival Committee.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to accept as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And I'll take a moment here, as I always do, on behalf of this council. We just went through a whole bunch of people that are putting their time, effort, and energy back to make what we were earlier talking about, which is making Bristol a beautiful place. It is not just the businesses. It is not just a beautiful new dock. It is not just downtown. It is not just the beautiful homes over on the east side or the west side. It is everything. And more importantly, and most importantly, it's the people that are here. It's the willingness to give time, effort, and energy away from your family and friends to do things that without them, we would not be the people we are today, and this town would be half of what it is. So this council says thank you.
And if I may, not just the ones that we appointed, but the ones that are step forward to be also a possible candidates, for the future. So we certainly appreciate their willingness.
Thank you. That's well said.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item for the business is old business. This is H1 Harbor Master Marsili, and this is in consideration of proposed ordinance to include insurance requirements for town marina, continued from December 6th.
Greg?
Good
Welcome.
evening. How you doing? Just want to propose an ordinance for boat insurance for all people at the docks. We spent a lot of money in the last few years on the docks down there. In the past year throughout the country, there's 12 different marina fires, countless thousands of dollars worth of damage, and boats sinking at piers, which shouldn't be a liability for the taxpayers of town. I'm recommending, we did a lot of research, called a lot of different marinas. There's not a lot of town marinas like us. But what the cost is for liability insurance only has been $250,000 across the board for boaters to have. That's a minimum. I mean, you as a boat owner could have whatever you want. I mean, I have $500,000 on my liability insurance on my boat. But you can choose what you want to have. So that's kind of where I'm at with this ordinance. I mean, if a boat catches on fire, by the time we get down to the marina, get the fire boat out there, get the fire trucks in, it's going to cause damage. And for a 100 square foot dock, so a regular 5 by 20 dock, commercially to have it built, it's around $8,200 to have someone just build the dock, plus electric, plus installation, plus piles. And then if you damage your neighbor's boat, that could be anywhere upwards from $2,000 to $100,000 on some of the boats we have currently in the marina. So that's kind of why we want to propose the ordinance. We had lengthy discussions at the Harbor Commission meeting. I know we don't share the same opinion, but roughly what was reported to me at the Harbor Commission meeting last month was for $500,000 worth of liability insurance, it would be $750 a year for a commercial fisherman. It is excessively more money than a recreational boater has to pay. I acknowledge that, but we just can't make an ordinance just for recreational boaters. It has to be across the board. Our transient boaters, when we use the DOCWA system, it asks on there, do you have boat insurance when you make a reservation? And 95% of the time last year it was checked yes. Now, we don't verify that. I mean, you could put anything you want down on paper. You can plug anything into the computer, but we're gonna go with they have it that way. There's no way to upload your insurance documentation for transient boaters. We checked with them this week on that. So,
Is there any way on dock where we can let the boaters know when they do make a reservation that we're looking at a minimum
yeah,
of that
we-
liability? We could just put it out there that they were on notice when they made the reservation. That way, if we do say something terrible happens and we find out they didn't have any liability insurance, we have recourse that they checked it off and they were aware that they were supposed to have minimums.
yeah,
Just seeing if our system can.
yeah, we're working with them on that to better their insurance requirement. We knew that was gonna be a contentious part of it if we don't have everybody that uses our dock systems to have boat insurance. So,
Is this the kind of thing where, like, some businesses where you're just getting a certificate that you're naming, like, say, Bristol, Town of Bristol on your liability insurance already?
yeah,
Because that doesn't often cost a lot more money.
no, they would be, what I would want them to include in the ordinance would require them to name the town of Bristol on their policy. Because what that's gonna do is, it's gonna make the insurance company send us a copy. We get them already from people that already have boat insurance. And then, if they cancel the insurance after they get the initial insurance, it'll let us know that they canceled it, then they'll have to remove their boat from the dock. And then a lot of times too, with boat insurance, it's not required by the state to have boat insurance. You can run a boat all day long, $1 million yacht, it doesn't matter. You don't need boat insurance. But with the boat insurance, it'll also tell them they can be in the water during named storms, like hurricanes, tropical storms. And it'll also give you a date where you can put the boat in the water and the date has to come out. So we might have to make other changes depending on that with our ordinances when the marina is open. Most boat insurances, mine, it's November 1st. Boat's got to be out of the water, and it doesn't cover named storms. We already have in our rules and our ordinances that boats will have to leave at the harbor master's discretion. If we have a bad storm come through, we communicate very well with the boaters when we have storms. So this is just takes the burden off the town if God forbid something bad happened. So the taxpayers that aren't using the marina aren't paying for the damage.
So what you're describing is if you had a car and it's either you purchased it and you're financing it or you're leasing it, that you have to have, you said the town is the additional insured, right?
Yep.
So if insurance is canceled, it would be the same thing as a car, right? Your bank would know or your lease company would know because they require those things. So going back to your earlier, you said that you had looked at other communities. Obviously, there's very few that have town-run docks, but the private ones primarily require minimum 250. Is that, did I understand that correctly?
Warren requires $250,000 for its recreational boaters. They don't charge their commercial fishermen, but they're separated. You know, their dock systems there. For whatever reason, they don't. I didn't get into it with my counterpart in Warren. Most of the private marinas, safe harbors, that which own just about everything now in Rhode Island, they're 500,000 plus for liability insurance.
Okay.
So if they're, you know, as far as town wise, 250 in Warren, the Harbor Master in Sandwich up in Mass, he said 250 was what they're charging, but then that's it, you know, as far as local in the area town marinas.
It would seem to me, and you can hear the undercurrent here, that there's some disagreement. I know Jim Dollins is here from the Harbor Commission to potentially speak on part of that discussion that happened. But it would seem to me, actually, not even seem to me, I don't believe that someone who doesn't have a boat that lives, pick a street, I'll say Wood Street because it's the first thing that came to mind, should have to pay for damage that happened to the use of our dock, whether it's a leisure boat or commercial boat. It should be the responsibility of the person who's using it. And the town should be held harmless reasonably for damages. So whether you gave an example of a fire, that would seem to be the most invasive on it. And I understand that a fire next to a concrete dock, if the concrete gets hot enough, then the interior metal can expand and then crack the dock, and then we can have a whole bunch of other issues. That is certainly a really bad case scenario. That's probably not the norm. But it would seem at the end of the day that this makes sense. It seems like a reasonable number. I'd like to ask Jim, I know that you came to speak on this topic, or at least answer any questions. If you wouldn't mind coming up. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to clarify what the Harbor Commission actually fit. We're not disagreeing at all with the long-term liability of the town needing to have liability insurance. Now, we all recognize that that's a thing that should happen. The only thing we're really disagreeing with our harbor master, who incidentally is one of the three things I wanted to tell you before I really started talking on the subject. I joined the Harbor Commission about 12 years ago, maybe 13. And that new marina is one of the most things you guys have all joined in doing to make this town much better and more useful for people that live in the town. Now, it doesn't apply to everybody, but boy, it certainly draws a crowd. I know that we have made considerable profit with regard to the usage of the marina and the way it's being managed. So it's not a disagreement, it's a timing issue, is that we are convinced. When we've been researching this, what a good many of the people, both commercial and recreational, we don't have any good history. And from Rhode Island, Greg will tell you there's no real good history because very few people do that at all, because they don't have town docks and they don't have facilities that are similar to what Bristol has. What we're finding is that when we talk to insurance companies, they're not prepared. They don't have a background. They don't have research that tells them what they should be charging for similar facilities. Now, we could go to New York City and we could go to Boston and we could get figures that we would be likely to have. Now, from a liability point of view, we all know, at least for the 12 years I've been involved with the Harbor Commission, we just haven't had any serious liability or any damage that would have warranted the taxpayers, other than the people that used to have any fees that we had in the last 12 years, which I say is a pretty good record. Let's see if I can get the thing. And there's a thing about in our ordinance that says we should do something to help commercial fishermen with fees. And that's in CF3 on page 49, which reads as follows. When reviewing the dock fees, if possible, consideration should be given for only moderate fee increases for commercial fishermen. So from that point of view, we want to make sure we keep the fees for insurances or whatever the requirements are we put into it, keep those to be reasonable. And there are some good many of the commercial fishermen feel that going up to a $500,000 liability or whatever the town considers should be put in there should be given due consideration, because some of the guys just can't afford it. Some of the guys are not full-time fishermen, and so maybe we give some consideration that or not. And that same thing applies to, I belong to another organization here in town which has docks and fees, although they're not as commercial oriented as they are like the Bristol Marine and like the Bristol Yacht Club. And the Elks Club doesn't have a few docks. They've got, according to the CRMC regulation, they have 4 commercial docks. that has been approved by CRMC. Sorry. One of the major things that kind of got me to be encouraged about getting involved with Harbor Commission is we had, I went to a meeting and sat through it, and I went to another one, and we had no commercial fishermen at the meeting. We had a few recreational people there, but we had no commercial fishermen there. And one of the things, major things I would love to have seen was 5 or 6, 8 or 10 or something of commercial fishermen, because we have 24 commercial fishermen that keep their boats at our docks. And I love to see the commercial fishing part of our offering to the townspeople and to commercial guys, but I love to see them grow. And one of the things that keeps them from growing is the investment cost you need to get into the business. So we're very careful about any increase in fees that don't have to be done, you know, to prevent them from being kept from going into the business. And they're very possibly a higher increase in fees when you get a guy new coming into the business. And one of the things that keeps them from doing is the investment cost. So most of the guys who really do it started with very little fishing. They maybe go start out on weekends or start on weekends in a couple days or something of that nature. But if we keep people that are starting a business from entering at a reasonable cost or something to help them be able to invest in and get in so that they can run this business. But it is beautiful to see now. We, on an average, we get somewhere around 8 commercial fishermen out of our 24. And they not only come to their meetings, they're commissioners and they're advisory board people, and they're guys that just love boating. And as a result of that happening, some of those who had been commercial fishing, as they get older, they get into recreational boating. So we think it's important that we keep it reasonable for recreational people as well as commercial. Now, that's one thing you might do is make a rule that applies to Bristol and see if we get any argument about commercial versus recreational. But, and truly, I'm a recreational boater, but I certainly have had so many good friends that are commercial fishermen. And boy, I don't want to see them get slammed with a fee. The fee, I didn't quite understand that fee because that's not the numbers we're getting from our commercial fishermen as to what the requirement would be for a $500,000 policy, you know, value. And the all we are asking for and really wanted to get across, and maybe I blame myself because I didn't put it in our agendas and recommendations well enough, is we're asking that we don't introduce this season because we don't think our insurance companies understand what the liability would be or don't know enough about it yet, and we should give them some time to research that. And all we're asking for is we don't apply it this year, that we begin to apply it next year after we know a hell of a lot more about it, because we don't know enough about it to make a good decision. And I don't think the insurance companies do yet. And if to give you a feeling for it, one of our commercial fishermen, John McDonald, is here, and he'd like to kind of go through what he's experienced so far in researching the insurance issue. And I think he has the same feeling that we do. And I've asked several recreational people to do that research, and they're not getting good answers from the insurance company yet. They're getting good answers, good and high. You know, so that's what we've experienced so far. So that's what we're asking for. We're asking that you do not implement that fee this year, and we would like to participate and make a recommendation again next year as to what that fee should be, whether the amount of liability or encourage another way we can get the insurance companies to maybe get a cooperative effort where they can insure boats and make it fair. And we like to see them make a profit too, the insurance companies, but we'd also like the commercial guys to get more guys. We don't have very many young commercial fishermen here in town, as you guys may know. I'd like to see we can put more commercial fishermen on the docks that we originally reserved on the CRMC years ago. We're full. Basically, our docks are full, but we do not have any restriction on the commercial fishing, and some of the people could be put in the commercial area where we have most of the commercial boats. And we don't allow that to happen presently. We'd like to see those more commercial boats get into the center dock area where most of the commercial boats are. And maybe some of them would be big enough, they'd have to be in the new dock area, and which incidentally is just working really swell. Everybody I've ever talked to about it likes the way we're running the docks, and our harbor master and his now assistant harbor master are doing a great job of managing the docking. So that's what the Harbor Commission is recommending, that we give it a 1-year delay while we research insurance more, because we're not getting good answers. We don't think. We think they're high because they don't know enough yet. And so that's what we would like to recommend. We give it a 1-year delay, and that's all we're asking for. We think insurance is a great idea. And, you know, if you're going to be keeping boats like we do here now, well, the thing of it is, we've got staff that can help management. And that is one of the things that helps prevent disasters, because they are constantly around looking at things. So that's what we wanted to express to you and let you know. This is what, and I'm pinching for Don. Don's on vacation in Florida. So he said he'd like me to come in and present to you what our true position is. We're not opposed to the insurance. We just want more time to research insurance companies and give them time to do the research on a similar town to Bristol, which there aren't very many.
So Jim, just a couple of things.
Any questions, by the way?
So first, I made a comment earlier talking about volunteers. You've been on the Harbor Commission for 12 years, and that's included. So thank you for your time there. I know you as an accomplished sailor. You know the water, you know the waterfront. Where I think I'm going to part ways with you is you said we haven't had a problem, and that's a great track record. That I agree with, but that's not a reason not to get insurance. What I'm concerned about, and I'm sure we all are, is that they call them accidents for a reason, right? So things happen, and as careful as we can possibly be, things happen. You mentioned working with insurance companies to maybe come up with a better rate. That in and of itself sounds like a great idea to me. I used to be a boat owner, and I had liability on my boat. So when I was out in the water, I made sure that if I hit somebody else, or something happened, right, that I was protected, or they were protected from that. In regards to the insurance that you spoke of, I wasn't quite sure what you meant, because each person would be responsible for their own insurance.
That's
if
correct.
you're able to pool, that sounds wonderful if there's discounts available. The other thing I heard the harbor master say was it was proposed $250,000 for everyone. I want to hear from John, being a commercial fisherman, but in a moment. But I would assume that the possibility of issues would be greater on a commercial boat, not because they don't know what they're doing, is that because it's probably used harder than a pleasure boat. That may not be the case, but I think everybody would have the same requirement. So if something happened, whether it's a commercial boat or it's a pleasure boat, that the town's people, because we're talking about people here, right? that they're not paying for those damages, that there's insurance in place. And I recall, I don't even remember what the insurance costs, and I'd have to look it up on it. I know pleasure boats, has already been stated, would be less expensive than a commercial boat. It makes sense, right? Because there's less possibility of things going wrong most of the time. But what I'm not sure about is, what does a year show? I think I'm concerned that I don't want to wait too long. If something happens in 6 months, everybody looks back and says, why didn't you put it in place? If nothing happens, which is what you want, that's why you have insurance, right? Then everybody says we didn't need to do it this year, right? But I think at the end of the day, I would like to know some more, and I'd like to hear from, John's
That's why I think
perspective
I
on
should
it.
let you listen to the guy.
Yeah.
And he's one of the experienced guys out there. John's been doing shellfishing and fishing for since he was 15 years old. So can't get a better guy to give you a source for information. I'll be glad to come back, and feel free to ask John any questions. He's pretty candid with us when this is something we should
Come on
be
up, John.
doing.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, that didn't tell us, how many years he's been commercial fishing though. No, that's
Commercial fishing, about 40.
good.
So well
It's okay,
versed.
John. I didn't want you to reveal your age.
Oh, that's all right. Basically, the problem we have as commercial is like actually getting the insurance. Some boats won't qualify. Like if you have a wood boat, like a wooden dragger or something like that, extremely difficult to get insurance. I got prices for my lobster boat, and it was $3,200. They don't want to just insure for liability. They want to put a dollar figure on your boat also, which of course raises it up. And my concern is, not only that, this young guys getting in the business, it's going to take their opportunity away. If like I said, I started when I was 15. If I was in high school, I want to get a slip for my boat at the town dock, and there are commercial slips available, they're probably not even going to be able to get insurance on, on a cog boat or something of that nature, which is typically a very inexpensive boat, but I got prices on that too, just for a 21-foot boat is around $1,000 for insurance, $750 just for liability. So it's quite expensive, especially when you get up into the bigger boat sizes. It goes by the size and the dollar value, and they don't even want to they just don't want to do liability alone, which is part of the problem. So if guys, are in tough shape, it's going to be hard. Now, I'm afraid we're going to lose fishermen at the dock because of it. Ultimately at the end, if they can't afford it, they're going to be gone. And the culture of what Bristol was for so many years, having the fishermen around, doing their job. And that's all we want to do. We just want to go down the dock, do our job. I know it's a lot different than it was 20 years ago. But,
Is that price coming from one insurance company, or
I've
they
got
have
it
they
from-
looked at
I got it
different
from-
insurance companies, or?
I got it from 2 insurance companies. One, and not only that, you have to get a survey, which costs $500 to $1,000 for your boat before you get the insurance. So, now you're looking at some boats up to $4,000, to do it,
Right.
So it's,
The thing for me is like insurance manages risk. So it's very good to have, because if you're hit or struck by somebody who is not insured or underinsured, financially, it can devastate you, right? I mean, you look at it, not having medical insurance, for an example, what one night in a hospital costs. I mean, it can put people in the poorhouse and right out of business very, very quickly. So having that protection barrier, I think, and managing that risk so you can stay financially and be made whole if something happens, or if you happen to do something accidentally to somebody else, it keeps you in business. Now, I understand it's expensive, but I'd like to know more about how those price structures are made, and understand if we can maybe shop around or do something with a pool to kind of get those prices down.
that was my suggestion, to see if we could do get some sort of pool together where you could get, a bunch of boats, and see if you could get, a better rate. I mean, if the town wants liability for their dock, our boat isn't their concern. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Um,
That's exactly what I was going to say. This isn't about
This isn't about my
protecting
life.
your boat, it's protecting our town.
Right.
Dock, and I mean, I have a lot of comments to say when it's my turn, but that's what I was thinking when Tim was speaking. It's not about you and your business, it's about, if something happens that your boat caused something to the town dock, which I would argue, no matter what happens, the town's gonna be sued anyway. But anyway, sorry, I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah,
when Tim's done.
Tim, you done?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mary.
I wanted to just ask you, in the commercial fishermen work, do most of you have like insurance on your boats or some sort of insurance anyway, or not really?
Some of the bigger boats do, like, the 30-foot range, 30 to 40-foot range. Some people opt not to have it, depending on the situation. Most cohort boats, I've been doing it for 40 years. I don't know hardly anybody that has it. And if they get a policy, it's typically something like from Progressive, like call them up, get a quote, and it's literally like a couple $100 maybe. But if you're commercial, when it comes down to brass tacks, if something happens and they know you're commercial, they're not going to pay you anyway.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's part of the real conundrum, really, with it.
I mean, I think it would be helpful to have like a survey. I don't know if the harbor master or the harbor master of the commission knows, but like of the boats that we have, how many of them are insured already?
Right.
Because one thing I'm very concerned about with this is that we have made it clear many, many years in various harbor plans and so forth that we want to keep the commercial fishermen here. And this seems like a sort of, and I don't think this is the intent, but this is a way to force them out.
Right.
And if I may for a minute, it's going to sound like I'm off the topic, but this is how sometimes I understand things. I work with, I don't work anything to do with, your kind of business, but I work in a school district and I have many, many after-school contractors. And our school department started us to make sure there were contracts and everybody having to have liability insurance. In case they fell or something happened, they would have liability insurance. So we had to go and get every single person, some of them very individual mom and pop artists and things like that, now had to go buy liability insurance for their business. Some people say it would be good practice. Other people would be like, well, I'm only going to make like maybe $5,000 a year out of this. And, I personally, when this first came up a couple of years ago, I personally called insurance companies and to ask about this. And it was tough to get a clear answer on this. Like if you belong to an association like yoga instructors, you might find something for $150. If you don't, and you're going out to your homeowner's company, it's going to cost you $400 or $500 to get insurance liability so that it can be on it. Some of them choose to do it. Some are like, it's just too expensive. And I think that we have to be really, really careful in going down this path. Like I have no problem with the recreational boaters. I would assume most recreational boaters, if you invest the money in a boat, you're going to get insurance, just like we do with our automobiles. But I'm particularly worried about the commercial fishermen and what this could do to that group of people and how we would go about, making sure that they could get it. Like, if they're not going to write on wooden boats, I mean, insurance is almost impossible. Like take your car, take your home. I can't even tell you what I pay in an older house with, tube and knob, some knob and tube and some whatever the next step up is, that I can't even tell you what I'm paying. I'm paying like over $3,000 a year, for that. So it's impossible. People don't want to write on certain things. I mean, from when I've talked to insurance companies, I'm talking about more homeowners than auto. So I think if it's like, well, if it's a wooden boat, they're not going to get it. I think we need more information. I mean, I don't know if we can phase this in, starting with the recreational boaters. I think Greg said there were 95% of the people already had insurance. But I think we do need more information on the commercial fishermen, because this can be devastating. And if we are serious about keeping that population in our community, we need to make sure that we have done everything we can to find out the details.
Jim, if you could come up to the mic. Thank you.
My apologies.
Not at all.
Stay right here, John. I think he can answer a lot of the commercial questions that I can't answer. That's why John's a great guy to be here, because he's been through all of these things for a good number of years. But that point that you made about the people that want to get into to boating and you know, discouraging is extremely important. And we don't have any real young commercial fishermen. And that worries me, because where the guys are gonna come from to replace guys like John? And you know, I think Bristol being a fishing community with commercial work is just beautiful. That was one of the main reasons I wanted to get on the Harbor Commission, because I wanted to see people showing up at our Harbor Commission meetings. We don't have any problem with that today, because they know what benefits they're getting from doing that. But if we keep leaving it the way it is, and where we don't help them get into the business or whatever we do. And the same thing actually applies to recreational boaters. We have less recreation boaters than if we had higher fees on recreational boaters too. Because the Bristol Harbor, like at the yacht club, we have never been where we didn't have a waiting list. And we do everything possible to make it easy to get to be a member of the yacht club. And we keep their fees down. We just lowered the age on intermediates they used at 25. When they reached the age of 25, they had to start paying full membership fees. We don't do that anymore. We cut them down and we stagger it from when they're 25 to when they're 30, because we were losing all of the young couples that we had at the yacht club. They couldn't afford it yet, but many of them can afford it when they get to be 30 and plus. And I think we ought to give that due consideration. And this is a cost they don't have today, although a good many of the recreational boaters have it and really can't afford it. And they do it, they spend it like we all do. When we really want to do something, we find a way to get the money and eat less, I guess. So, but I think you're right on there when you're talking about that. It's really important that we give it due consideration.
Very, very deliberate on this part of it, because it's, like I said, it's an easy way to force people out. And that's something we have explicitly said we do not want to do.
Right.
And we have said it many times here at this board. We said it in our reports, in our harbor plans. Am I correct, Diane? And so I think we have to really be careful about it. I mean, it's good when you have a lot of money in your back, and use my analogy again to some of my mom and pops. They were devastated. You know, like they had to do it. They had to find $400 or $500. You know, not as big of a deal if you Save the Bay coming to do after school programs or GAM theater, because you already got this liability. So it's like not a problem to go get the Pawtucket School Department on their certificate. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, I think you have to think about it. And I think we need more, like I said, we need more research, because I want to know how many people already have it. We want to be talking about something that, you know, there's 10 people that don't have it out of the group. Like how many actually have it? How many don't have it? What kind of boats are there? You know, and what about like the boating, the fishermen community? Are they able to help with this? Like, is there a co-op like nationally or something like that? Of fishermen? I just don't know the answer.
Yeah, like they have like the Mass Lobstermen's Association. If you go through them, you know, you could get like a group discount type of thing. That's something we can look into. I'm not sure of any other ones that are quite like that, but that's a pretty big organization.
Shellfish groups, things like that.
Yeah, we don't really have anything here in Rhode Island, like Shellfish Association. We do have a Shellfish Association. I can even actually speak to them and find out if there's anything through them.
I would like, Mr. Chairman, I would like to hold off on, you know, whether, I have no problem voting for this for the recreational boaters as a way to phase it in, if that's what you want to do. But I do think we need to get a lot more information. And, you know, what are some of the options if we want to go down this path? I don't think we're ready to make this decision tonight for the commercial fishermen.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that. I do have some questions.
Discussion? Go ahead.
Some questions. Andy, for Andy Tights, maybe let's say that in the event that there's a boat that cannot get any type of insurance or anything like that, is there a way that we can put an exception into place for boats that just cannot get it? Or can demonstrate that it's just impossible to get insurance? It seems that it would be hard not to be able to get insurance, but.
Well, commercial, it could be a hardship, it could be totally expensive hardship, because it could be like $5,000 for an old wooden boat.
I don't think it's the sort of thing that you can make exceptions to, because it's a kind of one for all thing. If the one boat that doesn't have insurance is the one that starts the fire or something else, or sinks and pulls the docks down, or, has old lines and breaks loose in a storm and hits the neighboring boats and the docks as well. I don't think it's something that you can make an exception
Okay,
for.
okay. Then how about, I know that, like, let's say that I know we seconded this for discussion and everything, but let's say that we did move forward with the ordinance, right? That ordinance would go on to our next meeting for a first reading on March 27th, then a second reading on April 17th. And so there would be that time period at least where more information could be generated about the possibility of creating insurance discounts or cooperatives or anything like that to pool risk. But let's say that we move forward today and we just say, let's push this off for discussion to the next meeting, then we're maybe looking at May to be able to generate that type of information. Does that sound about right?
I don't know.
I mean, you can set any effective date you want as well.
Okay.
You could set, June 1st as an effective date or something, whatever, as it comes up in first and second reading. If you wanted to do that, you could set the effective date.
Can I just ask
So
Andy,
hard.
can I follow up one thing on with Andy's, with that question? Do boats have like comprehensive insurance, just like cars? So you have your liability and then you have like, so, if my car hit the other boat because the line broke, I would, well, not the line in the car, but I would still be responsible for it. Does that
Well-
happen in boating? I know that you
Well,
have a boat.
So the answer is yes and no. So first of all, as Greg
You see me
said,
shaking my head right now? It's a classic lawyer response. Thank you. So, go ahead.
as
Go ahead.
Greg said, first of all, there's no requirement legally that anybody have insurance on any kind of recreational boat or smaller thing. I mean, you've got to get up into some sort of, larger classification over 60 feet and various other requirements. But even then, I'm not even sure about the insurance. But so that's the first thing. And then I think most recreational boaters, and I think most commercial boaters too, have, as you said, comprehensive policies that cover damage to their own hull if something happens to their boat, and also damage to other boats if they're in a collision or they break loose at the dock, as well as liability. And also, obviously, probably a lot of commercial boats have what we call a pollution rider, because they can be responsible. A small leak in their tank can be a very expensive environmental cleanup. So a lot of it has it. That can be expensive, and yes, it is difficult. It's actually even difficult for recreational boaters once your boat's over about 20 years. I mean, we have a lot of 40-year-old fiberglass sailboats that were built very strongly because they didn't know what the strength was. Many of them built here in Bristol, but the insurance companies, they're not concerned about the strength of the hull so much as everything else. The rusted hose clamps on the through hull fittings, the worn shrouds and the riggings, things like that. So a lot of insurance companies will require a survey for an older boat, and some insurance companies won't even insure it at all. So it is across the entire spectrum. So I think what we're talking about here is the idea of a liability only. So you wouldn't have to have that. And again, I don't know, I defer to the people who've looked for it, if there are companies out there that are willing to provide that liability only.
I think there's a lot of unanswered questions.
If you can't tell, Andy's a sailor. That's how he was able to answer those questions so completely. So Tim, did you have some?
Andy, so we could have an effective date of 6 months for commercial, if we wanted to give a little leeway to be able to allow them to do some research, but we could move forward with a more aggressive effective date for recreational.
I think you could.
Okay.
You could have two separate effective dates, one for recreational, one for commercial. Although, we'll have to define recreational and commercial in the ordinance to make that work.
Right. We'll have to call it out.
It wouldn't seem that hard since we break it down already, right?
Right.
So if we were to follow that same line, it wouldn't seem that difficult.
We do that with our dock fish.
So a couple things. First is we've talked a lot about the commercial fishermen. Everybody here sees the value of that. So let's make sure that we're all on the same page. So second is that our rates have always given commercial fishermen a lesser cost than pleasure boats. So we continue to focus on that. I don't see personally, Mary, I disagree with you. This is not pushing commercial fishermen out. This is good decisions to make sure that the town docks and the other people that use the town docks are not held or cost money to fix it if there's something that whoever, it's commercial or otherwise. I understand that we're focusing on commercial for a second. That being said, I do believe that there were some great points brought up this evening having to do with, you mentioned a wooden hull and the possibility of insurance. But we also heard the response to that from the solicitor saying that you don't need to insure your boat. You need to make sure that the docks and the surrounding boats are insured. So the liability part of it. So there's a lot of back and forth. I like Tim's idea. I think pushing commercial out 6 months with a requirement at 6 months, and that gives enough time to do some great research. But I also think that the harbor master came to us with a reasonable request with a low liability request too. This is not cheap. Let me just finish and you can certainly share. I think this makes sense for us to move forward. I think not moving forward, we should have had this all along. To be quite honest, we should have had it all along. And I don't think that requiring insurance for commercial fishermen is an act of trying to get rid of you.
No.
I think it's an act to make sure that this waterfront stays as beautiful as it is, and that an accident happening doesn't shut down 20 slips, including possibly yours. So I think it's a benefit for everyone.
It protects the fishermen too.
But we have to answer some questions, as my colleagues have pointed out. So,
Yeah.
John, you wanted to say something, and I'm going to ask for
Well, I
it.
just wanted to say, when we voted on this, originally it was $500,000 insurance. Greg, proposed 250, which is much better. Obviously, it's half.
It's about half, right?
Yeah, because to get the 500 it was outrageous. Even if, like I said, they don't want to rate the policies because of that. And I know you said you don't want to get rid of us. I get that. I know you don't want to get rid of
No,
us.
not at all.
But I'm just saying, as a reaction of having an additional cost and keeping like some young guys, that if they want to come into the business and get a dock space, they're going to be gone. And like I said, the culture of fishing in Bristol has been big for decades, you know what I mean? And it's shrinking down because a lot of, guys have been, getting older, basically, getting out. And, I'd like to see it go on for generations, and I hope it can. And I hope that something like this doesn't prevent it for future generations.
So would this council, and I think that this is a cautious and reasonable next step to make sure that there's time that research can happen, and possibly you've mentioned a couple of great points, which is pooling, wherever that comes from, whether it's from our brothers and sisters in Massachusetts or otherwise. Tim, you were going to make a motion.
Just make a motion to move forward with the proposed ordinance, carving out an effective date for the recreational boaters of effective date of April 1st. And then we'll do for the commercial fishermen, we'll do a 6 months. So what is that? March, April, May, June, July. What do we say?
October
August? You want to do October?
That would be 6 months from the start of that will give that much more time too. for research.
And I think that gives you
He's making it
ample
right now.
amount of time to do your research, kind of pool that insurance, take a look at those rates, and also be able to work with the harbor master to get that going. But at the same time, we're able to put those protections in place, that liability insurance that manages that risk. So I'm with the chairman. I think insurance is a good thing. It protects not only you, but from financial ruin, but it also protects, everybody and making them whole and moving forward. But that's my two pieces.
So I may have missed the motion. I apologize. So Mary, did you make a
No, I
motion
didn't make a
before?
motion. I said that's the way I think we should
Oh,
go. was
okay.
to-
I thought. it
If
was
we
a
could
motion,
pilot
sorry.
it or separate them
I
out.
thought
Thank
so too.
Can I just say that I wanted
Before
to,
you do, so we have a motion.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Thank you. Discussion. Go ahead.
no, I just want to say two things. One is, I didn't say it's a way to force them out like we want to force them out. I'm saying this is an unintended consequence of people that will not be able to afford it, or their boat will not be able to get insurance. And that's the next likely step. What am I going to do? I can't get insurance. It's going to break me. I maybe not can do this anymore. I'm going to move to another town, whatever the case may be. So I want to be clear that that is an unintended consequence. I did never said that it is a way to force them, said it's a way to force them out, not that we want to,
Thank you.
you know?
Thank you for the clarity.
And the other thing that I would say, if it was two separate motions for the two different things, I probably. No,
There was just one motion, two effective dates.
No, I'm just gonna.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I'm just gonna, I think there's too many unanswered questions to move forward, so I'm fine voting no at this point. But I want to make sure that, Melissa, you have the rationale, like why I'm saying that. And also, I think that you gentlemen all have the information of who these commercial fishermen are, and it would be very simple to get a survey done as to whether they have insurance liability or not. What they've found, if they've tried for it, why they do not have, if they don't have it, why not? And I think that could be done in a very short period of time because not a lot of people. So I would ask that that also be part of what you're going to do in terms of looking and figuring out a way to maybe propose a solution to the council.
In fairness to Greg, he's been working on this a while for himself, trying to get the rationale as to why we do it. Not very many other people knew, which he's found out, and some of us knew and some of us didn't, but he knows it pretty well. It's hard to get around and find the things we're looking for, even compare prices. So, you're not way out of the ballpark. Most of us do that with recreational boating, and a lot of guys do that with commercial boating. So we just don't have the answers. And we beg you, and I think you're on a right track if we may give us some time to do that. Whether you want to do it with two different dates or make it all one date, that's not important, but we need some time. And maybe it's our fault for not recognizing we needed this information earlier. And we should have had it and have all the answers for you. I apologize that we didn't. do
And
that.
Jim, this motion does give you the time. So it is listening to your concerns. So it's going to give you 6 months. So you're
I think that's a reasonable
great.
idea.
Awesome.
And if it's not working, we can't get it, we'll look to maybe another month, we think we'll have it. We'll, of course, let you know.
Thank you.
Jim and John, both of you made a comment about how tough it is for first-time commercial fishermen to get into the business and the young people not getting into. I know we're a little bit off on this, but what do you think would encourage you, incentivize them to get into the business? What do you think would be? I mean, we can say here, we're not seeing them, but why not?
It isn't, it necessarily isn't anything from the town's point of view. Like if you have a fishing license and you live in Bristol, you can get a dock space commercially. Just have to wait until, the next year to get it.
We have 176 on the waiting list for commercial docks right now. After all, we opened up
Right, but Jim, just staying with the thing, how would we get young people get in? You know, what would you suggest? I mean, I know you're saying, obviously, we're not discouraging them,
No.
but, and we certainly don't want to
Right.
through this, you know, the discussion this evening. But how can we go about encouraging them to get into the trade?
Maybe reach out
Yeah,
to
to,
CTE.
like, from a town standpoint, to get people involved in fishing, maybe some sort of program, you know, there's a lot of kids that obviously love to be out on the water and go sport fishing and stuff, you know. And,
Right.
and basically what happens is a lot of guys that get into it started, you know, as kids, you know, my father was a fisherman, I'm a fisherman. Get a lot of friends in the same
Mhm.
scenario,
Mhm.
you know, but they seem
Okay.
nowadays, the youth, I don't know, maybe they're more into computer stuff than,
Well, I would say that that is a good topic for the Harbor Commission to
Yeah.
get, to have a further discussion. And if you have some thoughts that you want to bring back to us that we may be able to support, certainly, that would be an excellent idea. The other question is, locally, you said we don't have, there's not a co-op or organization of our own guys? Do we have that at this
Yeah,
present
from
time?
like-
Anything that's official?
Bristol, like from Bristol Fishermen?
Yes.
There's different groups of, like, there's a Rhode Island Shell Fishermen's Association, which is based out of, you know, Warwick.
Okay.
We got some guys that are members there. There's like a Lobstermen's Association. So we've had different associations over the years.
Well, I have some thoughts when it comes to the insurance business. I'm on the board of trustees of a different group. So I certainly would be very interested in listening a little bit more. And if there's something that they may be able to do, certainly. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So we had a motion and a second. So the motion was stated that the non-commercial, for lack of a better way of saying it, would take effect April 1st. Obviously, we need to create an ordinance to do that. So this would have to be referred to the solicitor to create that.
So I
Madam
just
Clerk?
have a Clarity on that. So
Sure.
April 1st, so the first reading would be March 27th. The second reading wouldn't be held until April 17th.
So we need to
I don't
amend
think
that
the
to April
effective date would
17th.
be-
So moved.
There it is. Did you hear? So what just happened was we moved it forward to April 17th, so it coincides with upcoming meetings. It needs a first and second reading. So we would then move the requirement for the commercial fishermen to October 17th. How's that? Just to keep things nice and clean and straightforward. So, all right. So we have a motion and a second to do exactly stated as that, make it a requirement for non-commercial, make it a requirement for commercial starting on October 17th. And this is important, if there is information that the town can share, I know the Harbor Commission is a great source of information. I know the Harbor Master is a great source of information. If there are walls that we're hitting way before then, let's talk. Because the goal is not to make this an arduous and horrible thing. The goal is to make sure that we're protecting your neighbors from you and you from your neighbors, very much like zoning laws are, right? So, yes. All right. Greg, did you want to share?
Yeah, so, we'll have to give them some time to get insurance, the ones that don't have insurance. So, you know, they're probably.
For commercial, are you talking about
for-
commercial or residential?
For the non-commercial.
Non-commercial.
Right? So, I mean, obviously for October 17th, for the commercial fishermen, they'll have plenty of time to work on getting that. So that we'll probably have to do like a May 1 or May 15th. Just, they need to supply the harbor master's office, insurance, blah, 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 name the town on their
So
liability.
Greg, if I
insurance.
understand you correctly, if we were to follow the same timeline we said, first and second reading would be April 17th. You're saying make it a requirement that those insurances would be in place by when, please?
By May 15th.
Okay. Tim, do you feel like amending yet again?
I'm just.
No.
I
Listen,
know it's time.
let's do it right. Do it once.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to amend it from April 17th, and we're going to move it to, what was it, May 15th? Did you say?
May I suggest?
1 second, please.
I was just asking for, a couple weeks so they can get insurance. You can still approve it on the 17th and then you have X amount of days to supply insurance to the town. That's all I was asking.
Andy?
Yeah, I was concerned with that too. I mean, it passes on April 17th and on April 18th, everybody is illegal. How about, I mean, you don't even know if it's going to pass on the 17th. May I suggest that we draft it with an effective date, 30 days following passage for recreation boats and 180 days following passage for commercial?
Yeah, that's perfect. So
Guess
moved.
what, Tim?
Yet again.
Thank you.
Try for the fourth time.
Is there a
So
second?
moved.
Aaron? Second. All right. Any other discussion? Everybody clear on what's happening from here? Can somebody explain it to me? Because I need some, okay. All
I'll
right.
read in the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed, and I think this is a lot of reasons. I don't feel we have enough information on the commercial side. And I'm not really sure what happens if we find out that it's not a good idea on the commercial side. Like, what do we do? Like, if people really can't get it, if it's gonna be astronomically expensive. So I don't think it's wise to be going forward at this point in time for the commercial. So that's why I'm voting no.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion and your input. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Jim.
It's a real tough issue for some of the guys. They're trying to bring it.
We got to move. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So
We gotta keep going.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I1. This is Library Director Dyer. And this is for a council consideration to support a resolution for the fiscal year 2025 state budget allocation for funding Rogers Free Library.
Motion to support the resolution?
Second.
motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to support. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That was easy.
Did you want to speak? No.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I2. This is the Bristol Book Fest Committee, and this is in regard to council consideration to support a proclamation recognizing April 5th and 6th as Bristol Book Fest weekend.
I make a motion that we approve it.
Second or third?
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary, thirded by Tim to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd really like to see that motion come up as a third, yes. So, thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. Take care.
Renee, did you want to speak?
Did you want a little commercial about that?
Maybe you noticed our whale here. This is part of our motif for our Moby Dick Bristol Book Fest. When you see the whales around, when you find the white one, you can go to the scan code and it will tell you all about our events.
Oh,
coming
very
up.
cool.
We're grateful for the proclamation. Thank you all.
Good luck.
Very nice.
Good luck.
Thank
Success.
you.
Take care.
Take care.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I3, and this is from me to you in regard to the draft budget workshop schedule for the fiscal year 24 to 25.
Motion to approve the the budget workshop as drafted.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve the upcoming draft budget workshop. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I4. This is council consideration in regards to the 2024 town council meeting schedule changes.
And the dates that we talked about
Yes.
was we had a scheduled 6/19 and 7/10, and we are, because 6/19 is a recognized holiday, Juneteenth, we are going to, the proposal is to change our council meeting to 6/26 and remove the 7/10. So does that make sense? So, okay. Council? Are we okay with that? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I5. This is Director Williamson with the subdivision and development review regulation update per state law.
Diane,
Hello.
this is only 27,000 pages, right?
I know, I apologize. And with the strikeouts, with the new language and the old language, it really doubles it. So
does.
as you know, as you already have done with the zoning ordinance, the new state laws required that the planning board update the subdivision and development review regulations. It's mostly process changes. categories of development changing. As you might recall with the zoning, the planning board now, if you have an application that requires both a planning board and a zoning board variance, the planning board can do both. So it's a lot of that new steps, new processes. We've had to update the checklists, the requisite checklists to coincide with the new process. And so most of this is state law. The planning board, though, is looking a little bit closer at some of the design guidelines as well. They're taking this opportunity to update some other sections. For example, they want to update the street tree listing because it's a little bit antiquated. For example, we have the trees that the emerald ash borer trees as a street tree, which we don't want because of the emerald ash borer disease that's requiring us to take down the trees. So they're doing that with the chapter. They're sending the street tree inventory to the Conservation Commission for their recommendation. So that'll be an update. They have continued the public hearing to March 14th for your advice and comments. So this is somewhat unique. When the state law changed in 1995 and gave the planning board the authority to adopt their own regulations, it had previously been the council's job to adopt the regulations. But when the planning board could adopt their own regulations, there was a little bit of a transition. And I think there was an expectation by the council that, hey, we always used to do this. You know, why aren't we seeing these? So we added a paragraph that requires the planning board to send it to you for your advice and comments before they adopt it. So that is why it's here. And Andy has actually recommended that we edit that a little bit so that it can go to you, but not as part of the process prior to adoption. I think after the adoption, just so you know what's you know what the changes are and you make sure you're aware, but it doesn't have to be before they adopt their changes. So that's something that we have in the draft that you have in front of you tonight.
Diane, you said before you're talking about the zoning, I mean, the planning board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's all with the planning board now. They review and approve it. They have had a public hearing, which has been continued. So that back in 1995, when the state law changed, it put it into their jurisdiction to adopt. But like I said, it was always a council action. So we kind of tried to make a transition. And we can still do that if you'd like, or I think as recommended, we do it as a sort of a information only. This is what's been adopted for
I
your
think that's
information.
very important. So,
Yeah.
so we understand the changes and
Right.
following state law and its requirements, but it's important that there are so many things that come in front of the council. That this is one of those things that cannot just be put on the side. I think we need to be able to talk about it. We may not be able to change, but understand it and understand the ramifications of it.
Right, and be aware of it too,
Yes. So what action are you looking for from this council?
Unless you have any specific comments or advice that you wanted to pass on, I guess the recommendation would be to, Andy, would be a receive and file or to send it back to the board with no comments?
Yeah, I would think receive and file. I mean, it's here for your comments or questions, or as we have it, advice and comment. So if you have none, receive and file, or if you want to give us your comment and then follow that up with receive and file. And of course, Diane and I are here and are available to answer any of your questions about any parts of it. We pretty much talked about it last fall.
Right.
With the amendments. There's a lot of stuff you hate in here, but it's state law. So it is what it is. And actually, there's not that much in these regs that's other than perhaps the fact that a lot more of it's administrative. Probably that's the biggest change as far as that you probably wouldn't like is now anything up to 9 lots is a minor subdivision and there's no public hearing unless there's a street extension or creation or some waiver from the requirements that is sought. There's no public hearing or notice. It's just approved by staff. That's probably the most objectionable from your point of view as public notice and so forth. It's probably not that significant. Well, I don't know.
Be careful.
I'm not gonna comment on the policy stuff. All of the rest of it is just, I mean, even that is state law. Other stuff in state law is actually, I think very useful, such as what's called unified development, that the planning board is now given the authority to grant special use permits and variances if anyone is before them for any other sort of thing, including development plan review or a land development project or a subdivision. So they don't have to go to two different boards. They can go to only one board for all the relief they need. So that should be a benefit to anybody in business, new business coming to town and so forth, to only have that one stop.
Andy, just quickly, or Diane for that matter, if we have comments, we can just email them to you, right? We don't have to, that doesn't have to come in today's meeting. Correct.
Absolutely. You can email them at any time. As we mentioned in the fall, we're going to be amending this again in the next couple of months, probably 6 months' time, as we see how it goes and things change. And I'll just mention in this context, I think it's appropriate with, I think it's still within the Open Meetings Act with this context. I have been involved with talking to legislators and the people in the speaker's office about your concerns that were raised on the other zoning issues like adaptive reuse and whatnot. So I'm optimistic that I think there will be some changes to those things. Probably not what everybody wants, but I think there will be some clarifications and improvements coming out, and that'll probably lead to future amendments too. So if this is not a speak now or forever hold your peace. The board will go ahead on its next meeting in March to adopt it so we can implement it and be fully in compliance. But we will absolutely take into account all your suggestions at any time in the future.
Yes, this is a big pill to swallow. Not this particular thing, but I mean, the fact that the state is telling one size fits all and the impact that it has on municipalities, really, I mean, a bunch of monkeys up at the State House, they forget pretty quick, and I'm not afraid to repeat that. When they, in fact, they lose sense, they serve at the council, at the municipality level, they go to the state and they forget the impact that it has. And it just does not fly very well in the face of in the autonomy of the municipalities.
Agreed. So we just need to receive and file unless there's a comment.
Actually, yes, I had page 108, 118, just kidding.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask for discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just
Thank you.
Tony's comment says it all for all of us.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council,
hurts.
the next item on the agenda is I6. This is a draft resolution in support of legislation amending the town of Bristol's real estate tax exemption for persons over age of 65 years to require the eligible properties be owned and occupied by said person for a period of 20 years.
So this is in front of us from our discussions that we had. We talked about this earlier in the meeting. And this was a semi-synopsis of what we spoke about and taking the next step. Part of our dialogue included having a time of residency requirement that we don't currently have. Just for clarity, is that what we're talking about here is the resolution in support of amending the town so we can do the real estate exemption that we were talking about earlier, is talking about the senior exemption in particular. And this says, the proposal is 20 years. Now, I had conversations with the solicitor about a week ago. The council never said a specific number. We threw years out there, but this is what's in front of us, and we can have dialogue if we felt like this was too little or too much. But I meant to say something is that it's a really important point. If you are taking advantage of the senior exemption currently, then you'll be grandfathered in. So this change would not apply if you already have it. So if you've been in town, for example, if we decided to go this direction and you've been in town 4 years and you have the senior exemption, you'd still have it. That's not going to change. It's only on a go forward basis. So I just wanted to set that up for all of us. Council, thoughts?
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I was kind of more along the lines of wanting to maybe have like a means test or something like that. So like if there was maybe a senior who was collecting a senior tax exemption, they could continue to collect that tax exemption. But if they were newly eligible for that exemption, then there might be something along the lines of a means test. But yeah, I don't know. For me, I guess I'm not a big fan of, if maybe somebody lived in Warren or Barrington, or they're moving over here and they're now, what age do we have on this?
65.
65 years old. And of course, you have to be 45 years old to live here for 20 years to get the 20-year thing. But even if they have only lived here for 1 year, I mean, it's a
If they had
300,
what?
if they only lived here for 1 year, it's a $300 tax exemption. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I don't know. I guess I'm not necessarily sure I can support this.
Well, my view is like a couple of things. One, I'd like Andy to explain, why the change in the wording. And maybe I'll just do that first, and if you don't mind, and then I'll go to my next point.
Sorry, you're talking about the received at meeting item?
Yes, yes.
Right,
yes.
okay. So the original language just says exempt from taxation, talks about owned and occupied for a period of 20 years. So that would basically only apply if someone had lived in the same house for 20 years and then remained in that house for the exemption. So if, for example, they had lived in Bristol for 40 years, but they'd only lived in the house they were in for 15 years, that would seem not to apply, that they hadn't lived there. Or more familiarly with an elderly situation like this, as it was mentioned to me, that the scenario, someone who sold their larger house and is downsizing to something else. So the house that they're now living in and seeking the exemption, they haven't lived in for more than a year perhaps or so. So the initial thing was trying to change it around to, okay, someone who's owned property in Bristol for 20 years. And we're thinking, well, it shouldn't apply to someone who owns commercial property or even someone who's, a resident of Florida and only here for a couple of months. So that's why it got a little wordier, like all legal stuff. As we try to close loopholes, it got longer. So the idea is that if you've owned and resided in as your primary residence, a residential property or properties for 20 years. So you could have moved 2 or 3 times in the last 20 years, but if you've lived in Bristol all that time, you've owned the properties as your primary residence, then you would be eligible for this.
I'm going to say one of my concerns about this a little bit, and I've talked a lot about this at other workshops and stuff, is that I think I would prefer the word resident of Bristol. Suppose you haven't owned the house, but you've been living here forever. So suppose you were taking care of an elderly parent and living in their house. What if you were doing this? What if you just finally got the opportunity to buy a house and you are 55, let's just say, and but you've lived here since you're born here and raised? Why would you then not be able to get the exemption when you turn 65 or whatever the age would be? I mean, that bothers me because I don't think that that's completely right. You've got people who have multiple ownership, multiple people who own property. There's a lot of complicated aspects, you would know better than I as an attorney, that concerned me about this. And then the other thing about the 20 years, and I just want to be clear because I talked a lot about 25 years. But I always talked about it in relation to a much bigger exemption. So in my conversation with like the workshops, and it's something I had written up for you guys, the council last year, about a little over a year ago, it was looking for a way to make a substantial change in reduction of maybe 10 or 20,000. That's, however, and then that would have to go through and figure out like what are the parameters that need to be done in order to make that happen. So, maybe you have to live here for 20, 25 years. Maybe you can be 65, but maybe it would not work unless the person was 80 to have that kind of a big change. And in my memo to the council a year or so ago, it was, and to pay for that, it would be increasing the rent, the taxes on short-term and long-term rentals. I said short-term and then go into long-term, but we know, and I know this is addressed through the stuff Steve did, but my point was that there are people making big, big money off of, as businesses, off of short-term and long-term rentals, particularly to college students, that should be paying a lot more money so that we can give bigger discounts to our elderly people, whether or not there's a means test attached to that or not. But, maybe if you hit 75 or 78 or 80, you get a substantial amount. So I said earlier that I wouldn't go any less than 20 years, but with this like $450, does it really make a difference? You know what I mean? Maybe it's a 5-year, maybe it's a 10-year. I don't know what the numbers I don't remember that Michelle had given us. I'd have to go back and look through those. But I mean, my years of lengthy years was in relation to a substantial, like you're going to get, like, I think in some cities, you might get a $20,000 discount in your taxes. That is what I was like looking for. So I actually think I personally think, I know I sound like a negative person tonight, I'm not usually. I actually think that we need to sit back and think about this a little bit further, this part of it. I think everything we've done so far is okay. Not what I would have wanted, but it's okay. It's a little bit forward progress. But I'm not sure about this because I don't even think, I think I mentioned at the workshop, I don't even think somebody 65 should be eligible for a senior exemption. And I say that because if you need to retire and you need your Social Security to kick in to make you whole so that you can live as a retired person, most people can't retire till 67 now. I mean, and get full Social Security benefits. I think my age group is something like 66.6, it goes up, but it tops out at 67. So why are we still sticking with the 65? Those are the kind of questions. I mean, I've asked those. I didn't win the point. I mean, I understand how the process works, but, I think that I'm a little concerned, and I'd like to know what other communities are doing. Do most people have a 20-year, you have to live here? I do agree that you shouldn't just come to Bristol and get money off when we have people who've living here for years who are we could just look at our boards and commissions of how many people have had to leave this town because they couldn't afford to downsize or for anything else. I mean, we've lost maybe 5 commission members in in less than a year for that reason. So I'm not sure what I think about this, I guess.
There is a table attached in materials of about a dozen other towns, what they have. I don't think we were able to get the materials.
Yeah, it's on page 460. It lists out all the towns, and most of the towns have 0 number of years for the exemption. Some have 5, but yeah.
If I may, I forgot to mention for the record that there was a revision to that resolution that was received at meeting. I just need to note that for the record.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think we need to kind of study this up again and maybe think about it or talk about it further, whether it can be talked about. I don't even know if it would be appropriate at the budget time. I think this, is this something that do you want to do this for North Kingstown does it, but I don't know, I forgot, to match up what their exemption is. It would be helpful on this table, and I'm sure we have it. If I look in this drawer, I might even have it from.
Mary, when are you looking to continue this to? After budget, to after
Either to
budget?
the budget or to another meeting. I think Andy's point of why he changed the language is a similar point that I made, but I would it still concerns me because you could be a resident here forever, but if you haven't owned a house for 20 years, then you're up the creek. And that's not, I know some people here think that's the point, and I don't personally agree with that part, but so that's just my thoughts at the moment. I really.
So just a couple of,
semantics.
and Tony, please make your point, but all I was going to say was is that this is in front of the council because the council asked it to be in front of us. This was not proposed by anyone except the dialogue that this council had. And it's important to know too, is that the 20 years was the proposed number. It doesn't have to be that. And if this council decided otherwise, and also, and Tony, I know you're going to make your point. This is a resolution. We would need legislative approval. So we would need our legislators to then create a bill, get it passed to allow for this to happen. One more thing, Tony, is on the list that we have just for the public, it was mentioned what other communities have currently. Currently, Bristol's at 0. The majority of the communities have 0 for the senior exemption. So there's only a few that come up as, for example, Jamestown, Lincoln, North Kingstown has 20, Smithfield has 3, Westerly has 5, but the majority are 0 at this point in time, just for the record. Tony?
This resolution, we don't have anything in place at this point in time. This is a new creation. Am I correct? Okay. Because as I was reading through Bristol, I'm pretty much in favor of this. I mean, I've been here for 54 years. This is not necessarily for me, but for many of the folks that we deal with, for our residents. We have 23,000 in town. And I think in consideration from what I've heard in conversation with many of the folks, I think this aligns with, and it serves the purpose and intent that we've discussed in the past. So I'm very much in support, as is all the proposed language there in blue. I don't think 20 years is too much, and 65, I'm good with the 65, even though I have not registered yet for my exemption at 68. But anyway, that being said.
Tim, we appreciate it, Tim. Sarah, I just had a quick question on the 20 years. Financially, I mean, there's any impacts?
I had pulled Michelle's reports from what she had presented during the workshops, and with the $50 increase, it was 94,000. And with the 20-year, it came to 65,800.
So there is an impact. So meaning with 20 years, not as many people would be able to take advantage of it. Right, eligible. Thank you. It's a better way to say it.
So the eligibility drops from 94,000 to, did you say 60 something thousand? Sorry.
65,800, so
It drops to
66.
Okay.
But the understanding was that if you collect it right now, you're going to be grandfathered in under this. This only applies to
On a
people
go
moving forward.
100%. Yeah.
So the $30,000 savings that you're talking about, are you saying that every year there's a cohort of people that come in to collect this tax exemption and it costs us an additional $30,000? But every year this costs us $90,000, but every year it goes up another $30,000.
This year it's going up 90 because we've increased it by $50.
It goes up 90, okay.
But with the change, it'll only go up 64. So there's like a $30,000, roughly 30-something thousand dollar reduction by not accepting new incoming exemptions.
So
There's hundreds, like if we were to increase this to like $1,000, it's just unaffordable for us.
Right.
Remember the chart we provided at the workshop? There's hundreds of seniors that have lived here over 20 years that are with the different age groups. I can't add it up quick enough, but I'm just looking at this hundreds of them. So just the $50 is a $94,000 impact on this year's budget.
Right. And so, Sarah, so if we were to strike the 20-year, the 20 years and made it competitive with the rest of the cities and towns around Rhode Island, do we know what potentially that would jump us up to, or would we be capped
at the $94,000. Do you know what I mean? Like what I'm saying, how much of the population could potentially it open up and open us up to a huge number? What would that number be?
I think that's more of a question for Michelle, I think, than,
I have a copy of the report. It was in my drawer when I
So-
thought, if anybody wanted to make a copy to look at, you know, like in the.
So this
Not
was
very
just,
good about-
this was just for discussion. It's not your first reading. So Michelle is away. She can be here next meeting and she'll have those, that answer for
You
you.
take it back
Then
up, Dan. I
why
think
don't
would
we-
be helpful. And then I also think that, Andy, I do support some amount of time. I do think that the issue of the housing and how those years are counted is an issue for me.
That's fine. I'm just, I didn't have anything to do with the 20 years either. And I'm just responding to the request here about how to deal with people who hadn't lived in the same place. Obviously, that's all up to you as policy decisions, whether you're required to own or just reside and however long you decide.
So I just want to say one more time, and this is not to anybody in particular, honestly, but remember, this was discussions this council had asking for this to come in front of us with the 20-year was not part of that, just for clarity. We did say this council said, we want a residency requirement discussion, right? But not 20 in particular. Other than that, this is what the council generally spoke about. What I hear are lots of questions that we should probably wait for Michelle to come back. We can continue this to the next meeting for some more clarity. Sarah, we put you in an awkward position. We apologize because we were asking for information that we would
Yeah,
expect
sorry.
you to have at arm's length. So, but we can take the next step at the next meeting if everybody's okay with that.
So
Yeah,
motion to continue to the March 6th? meeting?
second,
Or-
no.
Or do you want to go to the March 27th?
March,
I would go a little later in the month to give ample time for Michelle to visit this
March 27th is our next,
council meeting.
yeah.
I would go with that.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a second
Second.
Yeah.
discussion?
I'll just a couple things for the record. So the residency requirement, what I was thinking about on that was when we discussed it, my understanding was the residency requirement was if this is your primary residence, then you would be eligible for the senior tax exemption. But if your primary residence was in a place like Florida or something like that, then you might not be eligible for something like the senior tax exemption moving forward. So prospectively. So that's one of the things I think would be worth examining as well,
Definitely
if we're
some
going to be
background.
examining some of this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we heard that there was the $30,000 savings from if we have the 20-year residency requirement. Then, of course, if we can get the data for a 2-year residency requirement or a 3-year, and it'll be easily be a table that we could put together like a matrix that would say this is actually how much we're going to save if there's a 2-year residency requirement, which I can tell you is probably going to be nominal for savings. So, but that's all I had for the record, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
But ready to move forward till the next meeting. So,
Tony?
Just briefly, a good point was brought up because, and we know we have quite a few folks who have moved on to Florida and other places, Arizona and so forth. But that being said, we just got to make sure that we close the loop on that they have owned and lived or resides, they still continue to reside in the residence, that they not simply, so we got to be careful that somewhere in there, that loop is closed.
They give it to their kids to use, but they take
Right.
the exemption.
And lastly, I'll remind everybody, the reoccurring theme from this council was allowing people, or not allowing, assisting people that have lived here for a very long time to be able to stay here.
Mhm.
You can't make that distinction if you don't have X amount of years being here. The other thing you can't make it, in my opinion, you can't make the distinction if you haven't owned the property. That doesn't mean we don't care about somebody who lives here but doesn't own property, but we're specifically talking about decreasing property tax for elderly residents of Bristol. And again, the reoccurring theme was, we don't want people to have to leave. This is not going to make, this is not the be all end all, but this is a part of it. But we've all covered it. We're going to continue this to March 27th. We'll talk about it a little bit more and see if we can move forward with it. Is there any other discussion before we do?
Just very briefly, to your point, the burden is actually on the homeowner, to maintain and continue to furnish, the revenue to cover the expenses for the town. And with having done away with the car tax, where residents now don't longer pay car tax. So that was picked up by somebody. That void was created, even though they say they reimburse the municipalities. And I know exactly what happens when that end, believe me. It certainly doesn't really make up for it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is J1, and this is for bid 1035 for the asbestos abatement, demolition, and site restoration at 216 Bayview Avenue. We had the bid openings today at noon. We did receive 2 bids for this bid. The first one was from Costello Dismantling Company, Inc., in the amount of $174,750. And the second one was from AA Asbestos Abatement Company, Inc., and that one was in the amount of $144,720.
I make a motion to refer to the town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim, as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is J2, and this is bid 1036, the Wally School roof replacement. We did also have the bid opening this afternoon at noon. We did receive 2 bids for this one. The first bid was from A&M Sheet Metal and Roofing Inc., and that was in the amount of $239,900. And the second one was from Westway Construction, and that was in the amount of $235,000.
Motion to refer to the town administrator to act in the best interest of our town.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony, as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The last item on the agenda is J3. This is bid 1037, 4th of July celebration fireworks display for 2024 and 2025. We did have the bid opening today at noon. We did receive 1 bid for this one, and that was from Pyrotechnico Fireworks, Inc., and that was for year 1, 2024 and 22 for $22,000, and year 2 for 2025 for $22,500, with a total bid amount of $44,500.
Make a motion to refer to the town administrator in the 4th of July committee to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim, as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. There are no special reports. There is nothing from the solicitor. We just need a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So, no, we had a motion made by Aaron, seconded by Tim. Any discussion on that motion? No, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Good night, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Do the citizens public forum?